We start our show with a ride back in the history. The cult of British motorcycling was in the 60s and cafe racing is back. And it is called the RE Continental GT. And here's Shams taking the first ride of the GT all the way in Goa.
An almost 4-year-long wait has finally come to an end. We first saw this bike, then known as the Cafe Racer, back in 2010 at the Auto Expo in New Delhi. But now it has finally launched. It's here, and it's called the Royal Enfield Continental GT. Today on Living Cars, we do a first ride of this brand new bike.
Cafe racers are etched in the history as classics on two wheels. They were an integral part of the biking culture in Britain in the 1960s. The term cafe racer describes quick rides undertaken by biker groups from one cafe to another. Now, in a bid to revive that culture, Royal Enfield, the world's oldest running bike brand in continuous production, has launched the new Continental GT in India. The inspiration clearly comes from the cafe racer motorbikes from half a century ago. There are a lot of similar styling cues. The idea is simple: have a stripped down appearance, powerful and fast engine, as well as light handling. Basically, a bike where you can enjoy the ride and have fun without worrying too much about technology and style.
Now, of course, there's a lot of rich heritage associated with this bike, and that's why one look at this bike and almost every element on this one here is very radical, very different from most other bikes you see here in our country. Even all of the Royal Enfield bikes are extremely different from the Continental GTs. So when you first look at the bike, the first thing you notice is the fact that it's only a single seat. The tank here is pretty big, so you get that lean riding position when you sit here, and that's what the bike is aimed at. There's a handlebar which is completely fresh design, again, which you haven't seen on any other RE till now. The mirrors are very interestingly placed here, right at the end of the handlebar. Very interesting. I really love the color combination on the mudguard here, the silver and black. And if you look at the bike totally, almost every element is so radical. So you look at the number of colors here. There's red, there's silver, there's black, there's yellow, there's golden, and all of them come together. That amalgamation of colors is extremely interesting. There's not a sore eye point on this bike. You like everything, you like the design. But the most important thing is how does the bike ride, and let's look at that.
The GT surely is a bike that looks unique, and therefore its road presence is enormous. The roads of Goa were an ideal location for us to ride the bike for the first time. A mix of traffic and empty roads, and a mix of straight as well as winding roads. We could understand all the traits of the latest Enfield. So a 500cc tried and tested engine is converted into a 535cc one. The power goes up by 2 bhp, and you have the fastest and the most powerful RE in India.
Well, we had a fun day riding the new Royal Enfield Continental GT here on the roads of Goa. And first things first, the ride position of this bike is surprisingly extremely comfortable for me, because before getting onto the bike this morning, I had my fears. I thought maybe I'd have to lean a bit too much on the bike to be comfortable on this bike, simply because the length of the tank seemed too big for me, and even the foot pegs were a little on the back side of the bike, towards the rear, than on the front. But when I got onto the bike, I was in a very good riding position. The weight distribution was extremely perfect, at least for me. My back and my arms were taking the weight equally, and there was, the fears that I had that maybe on a longer ride that we did today, more than 150 kilometers, maybe some body parts would ache or hurt. That doesn't happen, so I'm extremely happy with the bike right now. I can go on for miles more after this as well.
With respect to the ride position, the company has tried to find a middle path. Unlike the cafe races of the previous century, the degree at which you lean while holding the handlebar isn't as acute, and that directly translates to a more comfortable ride. And while it has some traits like every other Enfield, in others it's completely unique and maybe adds much better. This includes things like great pickup, a bike that vibrates much lesser, and one that touches a speed of 120 km per hour with ease.
And they don't call this the leanest, most powerful and the fastest Royal Enfield for nothing, because this one is actually true to all of those words. A 535cc EFI engine is something that will make this bike the most powerful RE in our country. Obviously it will be the most expensive as well, but that is something that you have to give in order to get the kind of bike you're getting. And this engine is extremely torquey. So, riding in the city or riding on the highway, you just find the right gauge quite easily.
It does take to the bumps and potholes quite easily. The 41mm front forks and Paloli gas-filled golden colored shock absorbers contribute to that. And with front and rear discs, that too from Brembo, braking is supremely confident. The only thing you might have to get used to is the oddly designed but sporty looking brake lever.
Also, this has to be the best Royal Enfield in terms of handling in our country, because if you've been slightly disappointed by other Enfields in our country, especially the Thunderbird, then all your fears are put to rest, because this one also handles very well. It takes to bumps and potholes quite easily. The ride quality is also very impressive.
Even though the characteristics of this bike point towards it being a single-seater, there is a double-seat variant as well. But a word of caution, a pillion behind you might affect that handling, which you may not like.
And even though the Continental GT is an impressive set of two wheels, there are a few things that you might not like on this bike. So to begin with, the mirrors here, they look very nice on the extreme edge of the handlebars, but in terms of practicality, they don't serve the sort of purpose they should be serving. In fact, they sometimes become a hindrance while maneuvering through heavy traffic. Also, they're very small in size. Maybe could have been bigger, because we need big mirrors on our bikes here in India. The turning radius also is an issue with this bike, especially in the street traffic. You'll have to maneuver very carefully. You can't squeeze in into any space where normally bikes can. That's another negative. And finally, this gap here, which is made for my thighs to, for the rider's thighs to fit in here, is sort of small, because from the length of my thigh is bigger than this. So my thighs actually go up to the Enfield logo here. So this space that is left for me here, though looks good, but doesn't serve too much purpose in terms of practicality, at least for me.
But all these things are just about getting used to, because if you like the bike, it won't take too much time in taking to the cons. The vintage style of the 60s certainly deserves a deco. It's priced well too. In Delhi, it's 2,05,000 on road, and Mumbai, it's 9,000 more.